What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the video. Today we have an exciting video planned for you guys. We're diving into the Indian motorcycles. Specifically, we're going to be comparing two models, the Indian Scout Bobber and the Indian Chief. Whether you're a seasoned rider or a rookie, choosing the right bike can be a tough decision. And while both bikes share some common characteristics, each bike offers its own unique style and riding experience. So let's break it down in today's video. First, let's just talk about the Scout Bobber for a second. In 2024, the price of a 2025 Scout Bobber is $12,999 for its base model, or the Scout Bobber with a standard trim. It features a liquid-cooled V-twin motor putting down about 105 horsepower and 82 foot-pounds of torque with a 6-speed transmission. Now that's pretty impressive when you consider that the bike only weighs 540 pounds. Now to pair with that tremendous power, it comes with a single disc brake with a 2-piston caliper in the front and a single disc with the 1-piston caliper in the rear. It comes with a 3.4 gallon tank and the seat height is a low 25.6 inches, making it easy for riders of all shapes and sizes to get on the bike with no trouble. It comes with the standard traditional dual shocks with a measly 2 inches of travel, but it gives it that iconic slammed stance, but it sacrifices a bit of comfort in terms of quality of the ride. Essentially, the Scout Bobber is a stripped down, no frills motorcycle that packs quite a punch in terms of the performance for anyone that's looking to have some fun on a V-twin cruiser for as little money as possible. Now, I own a Scout Bobber 20, and the addictive performance and just the raw power of the Scout Bobber is really what attracted me to the motorcycle. It is worth noting that you can dress up the Scout Bobber by adding a limited or limited plus tech trim, which unlocks features like cruise control, traction control, ride modes, and navigation, and so on. So next, let's talk about the Chief. For $2,000 more than the Scout Bobber, you can get yourself an Indian Chief. This is the quintessential cruiser, featuring an air-cooled Thunderstroke 111 that produces 108 foot-pounds of raw torque with a 6-speed transmission, but it does come in at 647 pounds, so about 100 more pounds than the Scout Bobber. However, because you're getting that peak torque at 3,200 RPM, you'll feel a lot more of that pull down low versus the peak torque of the Scout Bobber that comes in at 6,000 RPM. On the Chief, you also get a single disc brake in the front and rear, but you have twice as many pistons, which will give you a little bit more stopping power to pair with that 650-pound motorcycle. Now on the Chief, you'll get a 4-gallon tank with a 26-inch seat height, and you get dual shocks with an adjustable preload with 3 inches of travel. Not the best, but still much better when you're comparing it against the Scout Bobber. With the Chief, you do get ride modes, keyless ignition, rear cylinder deactivation in case the engine gets a little too hot. Those are all standard equipment on the Chief. So for only $2,000 more, I would argue you get a pretty good exchange of value when you compare it to the Scout Bobber. So now that we've gone through some of the features of both bikes, let's get down to brass tacks, right? Let's really dive in on a few things that I think will help you decide one way or the other. The power and performance is where you'll see some differences where you might lean one way or the other. Now, mind you, in my opinion, they both have excellent power, but it's really the way that the power is delivered that might help you determine one versus the other. If raw speed and power is your thing, you'd want to take a closer look at the Scout Bobber because that's where the bike excels in my opinion. This is the bike you want if you're going to be dodging traffic and you just want that adrenaline rush. The Scout Bobber will deliver that in spades, and it's truly addictive. Because it's relatively a lightweight bike, it's easy to maneuver, slow speed maneuvers don't pose as much of a threat, and I would argue it's more beginner rider friendly because of those things. Now on the flip side of that, the Scout Bobber won't feel as stable on the highway because it is lighter, so that's worth noting. If you want a bike to chase thrills, really ride aggressively, and potentially keep up with high revving sport bikes, that kind of thing, the Scout Bobber is a better choice. Like I mentioned before, the peak torque on this bike is at 6,300 RPM, so this is really going to pull a lot farther into the rev range. I personally really enjoy being able to wind up the throttle and just holding on, and it's very unique because you won't find too many V-twin motors with this characteristic, with this size package to boot. On the flip side, the Chief will feel more planted because it comes in 100 pounds heavier. So on the highway and long distance riding, you're going to be more comfortable. The Chief delivers ample power as well, but it's much lower in the RPM range versus the Scout. So it's going to deliver that power more upfront in the rev range, where I would argue it's more usable power. The other thing to note, the Chief is a bigger frame. It's a bigger bike and a heavier bike, so while you may encounter some of those downsides of that, like mobility, more difficult slow speed maneuvers, etc., you get a lot of the upsides as well. The Chief is going to feel a lot more comfortable on the highway, it's going to feel more stable, and it's better suited for 2-up riding. Keep in mind that it also comes with a 4-gallon tank, so it offers a better range versus the Scout Bobber. The Chief, in my opinion, offers the more traditional cruiser riding experience, good power down low, capable of long distance riding, and you can occasionally take a passenger with you, while the Scout Bobber is sportier, a more aggressive riding experience. I will say you can take a passenger on the Scout as well, but I don't know if that's the optimum way to go about it. If you're not into chasing thrills, but you're looking for more laid-back rides, long distance rides, and want to be more comfortable, I would say the Chief is better suited to deliver that for you. When you think about the traditional cruiser riding experience, to me, the Chief is what comes to mind. The Scout Bobber is a bit different. It's a bit rowdier in a sense. You know, it's a smaller package. Right now, I have a Scout Bobber and a Harley-Davidson Lowrider S. And if I want to go on longer rides, you know, I'll usually take the Lowrider S. But for quick rips around town, having some fun, running short errands, the Scout Bobber is a ton of fun. Let's talk about aesthetics for a second. Now, I know the saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and both bikes look great in my opinion. They both present a stripped-down, minimalist approach in terms of motorcycles. Of course, I have a soft spot for the Scout Bobber, considering that I own one, but I love the low, mean stance of the Scout Bobber. When I think of a bobber in general, to me, the Scout Bobber captures that essence a little bit more. It's got that low stance, and with the drag bars, the lines are really clean. Although I'm not too keen on the new engine case design of the 2025 models, I think the Scout Bobber looks great. The Chief also doesn't disappoint here either. What I really like about the Chief is just the steel frame design where you can see the exposed engine and you can see right through the motorcycle. I think that's pretty cool. In terms of a motorcycle that harkens to a traditional V-twin aesthetic, I think the Chief stays a little bit more true to that spirit, more so than the Scout Bobber. But both to me are excellent looking bikes. In terms of ergonomics and comfort, I'll touch on this really quickly. To me, this is where the Chief has the clear advantage here in terms of comfort. It's a bigger bike, so all around it's going to be a more comfortable bike for long distance riding, and not to mention it has 3 inches of travel in the rear versus the measly 2 inches of travel from the Scout Bobber. The Chief also has the advantage of just having a little bit more space, so you can stretch out a bit more, making it a far superior bike in terms of enjoying long cruises and the occasional 2-up riding. So the final verdict. So what's the final verdict? Well, I'll have to say it's really hard to choose between the two, because even though they share some similar characteristics, I do think they're two kind of different kind of tools for the job. I obviously have the Scout Bobber, but I also recognize the fact that I have the luxury of choosing between my Scout Bobber and the Lowrider S. However, if I could only choose one bike and it had to be between the Chief or the Scout Bobber, I'm gonna lean a little bit more towards the Chief, and here's my reason why. In the long run, I think it's a little bit more of a versatile machine. And what I mean by that is if I wanted to go on a long trip or even just ride around for the whole day, I know the Chief will provide a lot more comfort just out of the box. Yeah, I know that I'll lose a little bit in terms of the agility and the sporty feel of the Scout Bobber, but if I want a workhorse of a motorcycle that can just kind of do it all, I think the Chief presents that in a better value. However, this is just my opinion. I recognize that not everyone may value the same things. Ultimately, I would love to know what you guys think. Do you agree, disagree, yes or no? What would your choice be between the two? I'd love to hear from you guys, so feel free to drop me a line in the comments. But until next time, I'll see you on the next video. Peace.